Hey everybody, welcome back for another deep dive.
Always a pleasure.
Today we're going to be looking at AI, and specifically deepfakes and how that erodes trust.
Yeah.
We've got a whole bunch of research here, studies, legal analyses, and even some interviews with people developing AI.
Yeah, it's an exciting time.
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing is that it's really easy to be fooled by some of this stuff.
It is, and I think that that's something that people should really take to heart, that it's really easy to look at something that's fake and think that it's real.
Right.
And I think that, as this technology progresses, it's only going to get harder to tell what's real and what's fake.
Yeah, what's interesting too is that people are actually more likely to believe something if it confirms their own beliefs.
Right.
Which is scary because if you see a deep fake of something that already aligns with what you think is true, then you're not going to question it.
Exactly, and that's part of the reason why deepfakes are so effective, right?
Right.
Because they prey on our existing biases, and if you already have a negative view of a particular politician,
right,
and then you see a deepfake of that politician doing something scandalous, you're much more likely to believe it, even if it's not true.
Yeah, like even if it's completely fabricated, right?
Right.
Like imagine like a world leader making some inflammatory statement that's completely made up.
Yeah.
But people believe it, and it causes chaos.
That's the kind of power that we're talking about.
Right. And then the other thing that I think is interesting is that people don't really seem to think that sharing something that's fake
right,
is that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But really, if you think about it, if everybody shares something that's fake, even if they're not doing it intentionally, it still contributes to that spread of misinformation.
Absolutely. I think we all have a responsibility to be careful about what we share online.
Right.
Because, even if you don't intend to spread misinformation, you could be doing it inadvertently.
Right.
And that can have real-world consequences.
I'm sure. Yeah, and it's easy to get caught up in, wanting to share something if it's, salacious or whatever.
Right.
But you really have to think about where it came from and what the potential impacts are.
Exactly. I think it's important to take a step back and ask yourself, is this information reliable?
Right.
What's the source?
Right.
Is there any evidence to support this?
Right.
And if you're not sure, it's always best to err on the side of caution.
So let's talk about the science behind these deepfakes a little bit.
Sure.
How are they actually made?
Well, it's getting easier and easier as time goes on.
Right.
But the core technology is something called deep learning,
Okay.
and using these convolutional neural networks.
Convolutional neural network.
Like CNNs for short.
Yeah.
And basically, it's a way for a computer to analyze and replicate images with incredible accuracy.
Okay.
So you can think of it like, imagine an artist who's incredibly skilled at forging paintings.
Right.
Now give that artist a tool that can analyze and replicate brushstrokes, textures, colors with perfect precision.
Wow.
That's essentially what's happening with deepfakes. These CNNs can manipulate visuals in ways that are almost indistinguishable from reality.
So it's like giving a master forger superpowers.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really scary.
It is.
Because if they're that good, how can you even tell what's real anymore?
That's the challenge, and that's why we need to be more vigilant than ever. It's not just about looking for obvious glitches or inconsistencies anymore.
Right.
We need to develop a deeper level of critical thinking when we encounter information online.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to be talking about in this deep dive.
Absolutely.
We're going to look at all the different ways that trust is being eroded and how AI is playing a role in that.
Yep, and how we can fight back.
Yeah, absolutely. So stay tuned. So we've talked about how good these deepfakes are getting and how hard they are to detect. But what are people doing about this? I mean, are there any safeguards in place? Are governments trying to do something about it?
Yeah, they are. But the problem is that there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
Different countries are tackling this problem in very different ways.
Okay, so let's look at some of those different ways then.
So, for example, the European Union, they're actually in the process of finalizing what they're calling the AI Act.
The AI Act.
Yeah. And it's going to be a pretty big deal because it's going to be the first attempt to regulate AI on a global scale.
Wow. So what is their philosophy behind this?
It's really about risk assessment.
Okay.
They want to categorize different AI systems based on how likely they are to cause harm.
Okay.
So some things that they consider too risky, like those social scoring systems that China's been using,
Right.
those are just going to be banned outright.
Okay.
But other AI applications that are considered high risk but not completely off limits,
Right.
those are going to be subject to strict regulations.
Like what kind of regulations?
Well, things like transparency and accountability.
So like you have to know how the AI is working and who's responsible for it.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. What about the United States?
Well, the U.S. is taking a get more of a cautious approach.
Cautious?
Yeah, they're worried that if they regulate AI too much, it's going to stifle innovation.
Right, because that's usually their focus is on innovation and being first.
Exactly, and they're also concerned about the impact on the economy.
Right.
But of course, the downside of that is that it could allow some harmful AI applications to slip through the cracks.
Right, it's kind of a gamble.
It is a gamble, but their argument is that if they regulate too much, it's going to slow down progress in important areas like medicine and scientific research.
Right, I can see that.
And then there's the whole issue of how their political system is structured.
Right.
It's a lot harder for them to implement sweeping federal regulations than it is for the EU.
Right, because power is spread across the states and the courts.
Exactly.
So basically, you've got Europe trying to be really careful.
Right.
And the U.S. is like, we don't want to stifle innovation.
Yeah, it's kind of a tug of war.
What about China?
Well, China's kind of in a league of their own.
How so?
They're actually using AI regulation to tighten their grip on power.
Seriously?
Yeah, they want to control information within their borders, and they're using AI to do it.
Wow, so that's a whole other level of scary.
Yeah, it is.
So we're kind of headed toward this world where different countries have different rules for AI?
Exactly, and that's a big concern.
Why is that?
Because it makes it really hard to develop ethical and responsible AI on a global scale.
Right, it's like trying to play a game where everyone has different rules.
Exactly, and you end up with this fragmented landscape where there are loopholes for bad actors to exploit.
It's like the Wild West of AI.
Yeah, pretty much.
So what does all of this mean for regular people? Like, how does AI regulation impact our lives?
Well, it's not always obvious, but these decisions made at the highest levels have real-world consequences.
How so?
Think about it. The technology we use, the information we consume, the jobs we have,
Right.
all of that can be affected by how AI is regulated.
So it's not just some abstract policy debate, it actually matters.
It matters a lot, so we need to pay attention to these developments and make our voices heard.
So what can we do? I mean, it feels kind of overwhelming.
It's understandable to feel that way, but I think the most important thing is to be informed.
Informed.
Yeah, and engaged. Every time you share a video or click on a headline, you're participating in this giant information ecosystem.
It's a good way to put it.
And we have a responsibility to be critical thinkers.
Critical thinkers.
Yeah, to question what we see and hear and be careful about what we believe.
So we need to up our digital literacy game.
Exactly. And it's not just about spotting deepfakes, it's about understanding the bigger picture of how AI is shaping our world.
Right, and how it could be used against us.
Right. We need to be asking ourselves tough questions about privacy, security, jobs, even democracy.
Wow, it's a lot to think about.
It is, but these are conversations we need to be having.
It's exciting and scary at the same time.
It is, but I think it's important to remember that AI isn't all doom and gloom.
Oh, right, like there's that research about AI being used to help with climate change and poverty and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. There are a lot of people out there using AI to try to make the world a better place.
Okay, so it's not all bad.
Not at all. It's a powerful tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or evil.
So it really comes down to the choices we make.
Exactly, both individually and as a society.
So as we get deeper into this, I'm curious, what keeps you up at night when you think about AI?
That's a good question. One thing that I find both fascinating and concerning is that we're creating technologies that we don't fully understand.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the pace of AI development is so fast that we're building systems that can learn and evolve in ways we can't always predict.
So like machines that could become smarter than humans.
It's a possibility, and it raises some really profound questions about control ethics, even consciousness.
Yeah, it's like something out of a science fiction movie.
I know, right? But these aren't just philosophical questions anymore. We need to be thinking about these things now, while we still have time to shape the future of AI.
It's a huge responsibility.
It is. We're not just shaping the future of technology, we're shaping the future of intelligence itself.
So we need to choose wisely.
Absolutely. We need to think critically, collaborate globally, and put ethics first.
Well, this has been a really eye-opening conversation so far.
It has.
We've covered so much ground, from the technical side of deepfakes to the global race to regulate AI to the very nature of intelligence itself.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack.
And we're not done yet.
Right.
In the final part of our deep dive, we're going to shift gears and talk about what you, our listeners, can do to not just survive, but thrive in this crazy new world of AI. So stay tuned. All right, deep divers, we're back for the final part of our AI deep.
The home stretch.
Yeah, we've looked at the scary stuff, the regulations, all the big questions.
Yeah.
But now I want to focus on us. What can we actually do about all this?
Well, I think the good news is that we're not powerless.
Okay, good.
We can learn how to navigate this new world and actually thrive in it.
So what can we do? What are some practical tips?
Well, first of all, I'd say embrace lifelong learning.
Lifelong learning.
Yeah, it's not just about, keeping up with the latest gadgets.
Right.
It's about being curious
Okay.
thinking critically, and being willing to adapt.
So, like, how do we do that practically?
Well, there are so many resources out there. You can take online courses,
Okay.
go to workshops, read books, even listen to podcasts.
Oh, hey, like this one.
Exactly.
Shameless plug.
But seriously, focus on things like media literacy,
Okay.
digital citizenship, critical thinking skills. These are the tools you need to separate fact from fiction online.
So it's like we need to become internet detectives.
Kind of, yeah. Don't just take everything at face value, question everything. Look at the source, think about their motives.
Right, like, are they trying to sell me something or scare me?
Exactly. And remember, just because it looks real doesn't mean it is.
Right back to those deepfakes.
Yep, we talked about how they can manipulate our emotions.
Yeah, how can we guard against that?
Be aware of your own emotional responses. When you see something online that makes you really angry or scared,
Okay.
take a breath and ask yourself, why am I feeling this way?
Right, like, is this designed to make me feel this way?
Exactly. Often that's a sign that someone's trying to manipulate you.
So emotional intelligence is just as important as digital literacy.
Absolutely. The more self-aware we are, the harder it is to manipulate us.
Any other tips for surviving this AI world?
Surround yourself with diverse perspectives.
Oh, that's a good one.
Don't just listen to people who agree with you.
Right.
And don't be afraid to question authority.
Yeah, like, don't just believe something because someone in a suit said it.
Exactly. We have to think for ourselves.
So this is about being active participants in the information world, not just passive consumers.
Exactly. We have a responsibility to be informed and engaged citizens.
This has been a really empowering conversation. I feel like we've gone from feeling scared to feeling like we can actually handle this.
That's what I was hoping for.
So to wrap things up, what's one big question our listeners should think about?
Well, as AI gets more and more advanced and the lines between human and machine get blurrier,
Yeah?
how do we define what it means to be human?
Oh, wow, that's deep.
What values do we want to prioritize? How will technology shape our future?
That's a lot to chew on.
It is, but it's something we all need to be thinking about.
Well, Deep Divers, that's the end of our AI Deep Dive. Thanks for coming along for the ride. We hope you'll learn something new and maybe even feel a little more prepared for the future. Don't forget to leave us a comment and tell us what you think. We love hearing from you. And if you enjoyed this episode, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future deep dives. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep diving deep, podcast maniacs.